Bank, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160. District Judge Chris Welch is with us this morning. You brought someone with you today.
Good morning, Todd. I have Matt Simon with me, and it looks like we've got another one of our committee members from the Indiana County Bar Association Law Day Committee. Jennifer Westrick is finding her way into the studio.
Right. Come on in, Jennifer. There you go. Here she comes. Law Day. You just said the phrase Law Day. What is that, Chris?
That's right, Todd. The Pennsylvania Bar Association is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year of Law Day, which is it's observed on May 1st of every year, and it's an opportunity for lawyers and judges to get out into the schools and talk to students about what it is that we do all day long. A lot of times, the only exposure that students have to what we do is on television, and so they think that it's maybe a glamorous lifestyle, and it isn't always that.
What? So you've been going out into schools?
We have been.
And still, are there still some school visits?
Yes. The goal of the committee, actually Bob Marcus charged me with this several years ago whenever he asked me to chair this committee. I said, we're doing 2 or 3 schools. How many schools would you like us to attempt to get to? And he said, let's try to get into all the schools in the county. So as of right now, we've got all but Blairsville, and Attorney Simon is working on that with Judge Rega in Blairsville. And I think Homer Center is the only other school district that we don't have anything nailed down yet as far as a time and a class to go and talk to. But we've done some already, and there are more coming up.
All right, so let's learn about them. Matt and Jennifer, tell us about your experiences with Law Day. What's going on, and what are the reactions that you're hearing from the students in the schools?
Well, Todd, Judge Rega and I have been frequent visitors to the Blairsville High School for Law Day, and it is a situation where it is very interactive. We try to make it very interactive for the students, where we give open-ended questions and about the topic of the particular year. This year, I believe it's separation of powers between the different branches of the government, and by going in there and basically allowing the kids to interact with us, we stimulate. We basically stimulate their thoughts of the law, because there's a lot of preconceived notions, and then there's a lot of notions that are not necessarily founded. And I think Judge Rega and I, especially down in Blairsville, I think the kids look forward to it and definitely enjoy it. Jen?
I always take care of United High School. I have spoken to the 8th grade career class, and I have also last year did the entire senior class, actually in the auditorium. And what I like is incorporating what the topic is for the year also with what their reality is. So I discuss social media, the fact that they're going into college. We discuss DUIs, underage drinking, drug use, those kind of things that are real for them, that they very well may find themselves in. And I find that gets a lot of questions answered, and that gets a lot of response from the students. I think if they're informed about, these kind of things and how to prevent it, and, what ramifications there are and how that affects the rest of their lives and their careers moving forward, that really hits home with them.
Yeah, that engagement aspect of it. I imagine that there's a point at which the questions all of a sudden start coming out. They're sitting there, if they're like most school assemblies,
right.
Okay, why are we here? At least it gets me out of class. And then all of a sudden you say something that sort of clicks in their brains, and then boom, they're into it, and they need to understand some things, and questions start coming. I would guess that's a pretty important point in any assembly when you're talking to them, is when they all of a sudden become engaged.
It is. I think one of the things that's been working this year is we're asking the teachers, our liaison with the school, get some questions in advance. Let us know what the kids want to talk about, what's on their minds. I've gone out with Judge Bianco a couple of times now, and last year he likes to call it hot topics. We'll pick 2 or 3 things that are really hot, and or things that are going to apply to whatever age group it is that we're going out to talk to, and we start getting into 2 or 3 of those topics, and we've got plenty to fill a class period with.
Yeah. I would guess as well that you find some students that are really eager to explore careers in law. Would that be the case?
Oh, absolutely. There's a couple times you'll see the students that really engage themselves into the situation, and they probably have a future in the law because they're articulate, they speak well, they make very, very good points, and there's always a couple in every assembly.
Yeah. How personal do you get in explaining how it was that you became involved in the law when you're talking to students and they're trying to figure out, they're at a point in their lives where they're saying, I don't know what I want to do with my life?
I think all of us talk about where we started, maybe where we start off in college and what our major was. And I know with most of the kids that I speak to, I tell them that you don't have to, there's not a particular undergraduate degree you have to go to law school. And in fact, I always explain, I went to school, I was planning on being a teacher. I started off in English education, and I took a couple criminology classes, and I really liked it. And so I switched my major to criminology. And then when I graduated, I was like, well, now what am I going to do? I was going back and forth on the state police or, finding something else. And I talked to my counselor at the school, or my advisor at the school, and she's like, did you ever consider law school? And that's where I ended up. So, not everybody who decides to become a lawyer. In fact, if you talk to most of us, we already had different aspirations before we went into the actual law field.
Yeah, Chris wanted to be a radio salesman, and he fulfilled that.
That was a lifetime ago.
A career objective, and we appreciate that very, very much. That you got out, Chris, as you have done this from the standpoint of an attorney, and now you do it from the standpoint you had the experience of being a magisterial district judge. Has that changed the way that you present things or the way that you look at a career in law?
I guess it doesn't change the way that I look at things. I look at things the same way.
Added some depth, though.
Yeah, for sure. And I can talk a little bit more in depth about what it is that goes on at the district court. And some of the types of things that go on there are a little more in depth than maybe prior to taking office. But we on Tuesday of this week, Attorney Gina Ryan Force was with me at Marion Center, and we actually spoke for 3 class periods, and we had 3 separate segments that we used. We talked about the jury selection process, we talked about crimes and defenses, and then we talked about hot topics. So we got into a whole myriad of things. One of the really interesting questions was women in the law. That was an issue that was actually brought up by one of the students, and they were curious the mix of women in the law and whether it was still a male-dominated career or profession. Jen, you want to address that?
Yeah, I think that when I first started here in Indiana County, I was one of the first new female attorneys to come on board. Now that was 13 years ago, and since then, I think I can speak for everybody. We have more and more female attorneys coming in compared to male attorneys, like new attorneys coming into the bar. And I think that it very much was a male-dominated field. And at this point, I would say it's very close to a 50-50 male and female attorney ratio now. Indiana County still has several male attorneys, but like I said, more and more of the new attorneys coming in are actually women.
Mm-hmm. Matt, when you are in the school setting and you're talking with students, they, of course, have teachers who have sort of led them through their career, their high school career choices, guidance counselors who do that. Talk about the interaction with the folks who are helping to guide these young men and women in their career choices and their educational paths.
Well, I actually think that there's 2 parts to that, because there's not only the educational / teachers part to it, but it starts at home as well. Their parents provide certain social values and upbringings with that, and it's an amazing part to it as to what they bring into the classroom, what they learn from the classroom, and then what they express to us when we actually go there for the particular assembly. And what I know Judge Reagan and I absolutely do in the beginning of every assembly is we talk about the openness of the assembly, the willingness of everybody to participate, that we may have differing of opinions, and that's fine. That's what the law is all about. That's why we went into it, because, 2 sides have differing opinions, and they have to go in there and advocate for their clients. But it is very interesting to see how the kids are, what their backgrounds are, whether they be more rural, urban, or semi-urban, or something like that. That they have different values, and that is something we absolutely advocate. So we never allow anybody to feel in those assemblies that they can't say what they believe or what they feel, because it has to be an open dialogue.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a few eyes opened as well when you explain that there are careers not just in criminal law but civil law.
Oh, that's absolutely right. Everybody thinks you watch the TV and everything. Everybody's a criminal attorney, and there's also I think sometimes misconceptions with regard to that as well. And I know. Usually when we go down to Blairsville, the spotlight is usually on Judge Rega, because she is a magisterial district judge down there, and they look up, I think, to her from the standpoint that she does cover that district, which is Blairsville High School.
It's not always Colonel Mustard in the library with a knife. Sometimes Colonel Mustard has an accountant's ledger.
That's right.
With him. Well, this has been an enlightening conversation. Thank you all for coming in to visit with us here today. And
always a pleasure. Thanks,
yes, thank you, Todd.
These will continue to go on, I'm sure, down through the years, and maybe we'll have you back again next year and talk about it a little bit more.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Indiana in the Morning is presented by First Commonwealth Bank. It's WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. Fox News is up next at the top of the hour. We will follow that with news from our WCCS newsroom with Josh Whittison. And then Jack Benedict is coming by for another check of sports on this Friday morning.
Paid for by the Citizens Alliance of Pennsylvania.
There are many Republicans running for state representative in Indiana County, but only one stands out as a true independent conservative, Republican Julie Anderson. You see, Julie Anderson is not a career politician, and unlike the other candidate in the race, Julie Anderson is not a professional candidate. In fact, she supports term limits and is pledged to limit her terms as your state representative. And to further show her commitment to draining the Harrisburg swamp, Julie Anderson has promised voters that she will decline the gold-plated pension plan those politicians in Harrisburg created for themselves at taxpayers' expense. A pro-life and pro-Second Amendment supporter, Julie Anderson always votes to protect our constitutional freedoms. Julie Anderson will be the common-sense conservative we need to fight for smaller government, lower taxes, and taking the Harrisburg establishment. On Tuesday, May 15th, vote conservative Republican Julie Anderson for state representative, the new conservative voice for Indiana County.
101.1 FM and AM 1160 WCCS, Homer City, Clymer.
WCCS. A message to Republicans: don't get complacent. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
We are all making America proud. We are rocking.
President Trump at a rally in Elkhart, Indiana, predicting a great Republican victory in November, saying his June 12th meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is a chance for world peace.
Do you remember everybody in the fake news where they were saying he's going to get us into a nuclear war?
Now, the president today will outline a plan trying to make prescription drugs cheaper.
We want to use the private sector